Hello everyone. This video is a short presentation of the sample paper that I provided on the Getting Started page of your course. You can see that I've already have the template that I utilize for APA, and it has a running head, basically that lists the title of my paper in all caps, the impact of perinatal loss among adolescent parents. You also see that I have a short title above that. So if you're utilizing the sample template that I provided in the Getting Started section of your course, you'll find that this template is here for you to utilize. You'll also see that I have the title here, but it's not in all caps. The author of who's writing this particular course, the college, and of course the instructor who's going to be receiving this assignment. So as you move on to the next part of the assignment, you'll see that you're required to have an abstract. Just be mindful that your abstract does not have to be as long as mine, but what I did is did an abstract that talks about a particular research proposal approach that I use. And basically I use some key terms. So this is going to be a qualitative pharmacological study that explores the psychological, grieving, female and male development, pregnancy loss, marriage and stillbirth, and parenting experience of adolescent parents with perinatal loss. Now, I could basically have cut my abstract short right there, but I talked a little bit more about what this research is going to look like. So I also talked a little bit about the number of participants that's going to be in here. I talked about the data collection, which I'm going to be using, which is face-to-face or telephone interview. I also talked about the results where I'm looking to find information and common themes. So I'm talking about emotional state, grief response, pregnancy loss, relationship, source of support. And then basically I talked a little bit more about who's going to be benefiting from this research in this abstract. Be mindful that your assignment only requires you with 5 to 7 pages, not including your title page, abstract, and reference page. So as you move on down to the introduction, so I have a small introduction section where I'm talking about my research. And so when you're looking at your introduction, you should be looking at the research question or problem clearly identified. You should be looking at written composition, that's spelling, punctuations, grammar, and sentence structure that I will be looking for when I'm reading your paper. Also, the research question or problem placed in social work context, basically looking at background or rationale for the study. So I give you some information. Now I use 3 paragraphs. Since your assignment is going to be short, 2 paragraphs might be enough for you. Even 1 paragraph might be enough, but I don't think that 1 paragraph would actually support what you're trying to look at. So remember what my dissertation topic was, and you'll see that I provided information that actually support that. In addition to the introduction, you'll find my research questions in there. So what is it that I was looking for? And so what I wanted to know is, how do adolescent parents describe their reaction to their perinatal loss? I also wanted to know, what does the loss mean to them? And then again, I wanted to know, what support do adolescent parents perceive they need following a perinatal loss? In other words, what kind of help are they looking for? So I talked a little bit about feelings of guilt and shame as a result of not being able to deliver a healthy baby. So I kind of supported my research question with some information after that. Then the next part of the paper you should be considering is your lit review. Your lit review basically is looking more in depth the studies are critically reviewed and relative to the research question or problem. You want to also look at the issues of diversity which are addressed. You want to think about the number of articles or books that is appropriate for this particular study, but remember your assignment is going to be short, and so you're not going to have as many resources as I use in this particular example. You also want to be thinking about scholarly research. Now, I provided you with a short video that talks about library researches and how to actually write a paper in APA format, so you should already have that. It's also within text of citation, are there APA style. Sometimes students make the mistake of resorting back to MLA style. Just remember that you have to keep it in APA style. And as you do the lit review, I provided some articles that talks about literature that looks at the death of a child that an adolescent may have had. And so I talked a little bit about theories, the type of theories, Bowlby's attachment theory. And I basically said what it was and what it relates to. And then I use Erickson's 8 stages model. So what is the stage for adolescent? And as you can see right here, I said Corey 2009 noted that Erickson identified identity versus role confusion stage, which is at 12 to 18. Now just remember that this is the particular age population I was looking at. Then I used Sanders' model. Sanders' model talked about the impact on how parents who lost a child could be impacted by socioeconomics, a decrease in relationship, basically cultural differences. So I kind of talked a little bit about that using Sanders' model. Now I use more than one theory in this. So in your paper, because it's short, it's going to be kind of shorter. So just be mindful of that. Okay, the methodology section. So what you want to consider in the methodology section basically is a brief restatement of the research question. In other words, what are you trying to find out? And then you want to be thinking about independent and dependent variables. These are also going to be assignments in this particular course that you have. So just be mindful of that. So what I basically said that for this proposed pharmacological study, the researcher will use a one-on-one, semi-structured, in-depth interview. In other words, I wanted to speak to each one of my participants individually and record it there with their answers. I didn't want to use a focus group because I was afraid that that could be influenced. What one participant may say might influence another. So I did it all individually, and I asked the same questions of each one of them. So the next section of your paper is the respondents, and you can see I have headings under each one of the sections, and you should be writing just like this and the same. Sometimes when students don't provide the headings, they leave out important sections or important information in their paper. So if you fail to provide me with a heading, I may not see the connection in your paper. So your paper should be similar to what I provided you in the example as you're looking at each one of your studies. And so under the respondents, I said a current proposed research study that will include 8 to 10 adolescents who have experienced a perinatal loss during the past 2 years. And then I said participant experience will be gathered through semi-structured interviews. And then I talked about the interview will be commenced of open-ended questionings, gradually moving towards specific questions. So when you're asking open-ended, you're building rapport because of the nature of information I'm going to be asking. That's why I use open-ended. And then I break down into specific questions in my particular questionnaire that I was going to be using. So the next section looks at instrumentation. In other words, what are you going to use to actually get this information and how you're going to do it? So if you look at the second paragraph I use in this section, it talks about Burr recommending that telephone interview requires audio taping and transcriptions. Okay, so I basically said that I will also be using a software called Nevo 8 to actually record this information and compute the data for me. Now the limitations, because I was looking at working with adolescents, we must be mindful that the way we select our samples might have impact. So one of the limitations might be that participants may not want to sign your consent form to be a part of this. And because I'm talking about adolescents, there again, parents might not want to be a part of this process. And then parents may decide, yeah, my child can go through this, but then the child may not want to do it. So you have to be mindful. So what I did in this particular study is I had the parent sign a consent form for the research, and I also had the adolescent parent sign the consent form. So this is where I talked about the informed consent. And I talked a little bit about that in the ethical issues, which is in the next part of it. So basically, I talked about ethical issues. In other words, anonymity. In other words, not including the students or the participants' real name. To include not even putting their address or location. So you must be mindful of the ethical issues that may come in place. So in other words, you definitely should have an informed consent form signed by each of your parent and participants. Now you may want to do your research with adults, so that's fine. So the only thing you need is an informed consent for adults to sign. Another ethical issue that you might want to consider also in this process is that when you're writing, if you're developing a research questionnaire, it should be on the level of an 8th grade reading level. So that's something else you might want to consider in your ethical issue with. And then I also have research references. In other words, I list my reference. This is how your reference should be submitted via APA style. So you may want to make sure you take a look at this. Now I have peer review articles. Here I also have some statistical data that I retrieved. So I showed you how to find that under your library search. So you may want to consider utilizing these. Remember, APA requires references. MLA requires works cited. So all of your references should be listed under reference. And you can see again, all the references are located on separate sheets. In other words, from your research information. Here again, because you have to develop a consent form in this assignment, you want to also attach your consent form as a basically appendix. You may want to also find a research questionnaire that you might want to add to your research project. Here again, all of this information was either uploaded or downloaded from the library. So you do have this information available to you. So your paper should look similar to this when you complete your final project. And that concludes this presentation. Should you have any questions concerning your paper or research topic, don't hesitate to reach out to me for assistance or to consider utilizing the library resources that also will assist you. I hope this has been a assignment that's been rewarding for you. This is something you will be considering in the field of social work. So it's important that you really think about a research topic that you would like to make a difference in. And this is the end of this presentation.